When the amendment was passed, it didn't say anybody can own a gun and any kind of gun and any kind of weapon. You couldn't buy a cannon.
One of these girls must be second, right? No. They have more to swim.
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
We've got a great one for you today. President Biden said some ridiculous things about guns. The transgender swimming in the NCAA is getting a remake. Also, Matt Walsh's Dr. Phil episode got taken down. So all that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right about now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go! That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from a dingy bunker completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. Today it is February 4th, the year of our Lord 2022. It's a Friday going into the weekend, pregnant with possibilities. This could be the weekend that you propose to your girlfriend or get dunked. Sorry to have that little damper on you. We've got a great one. Joe Biden said some funny things yesterday in New York, especially because it was in New York. We're going to have that coming up first with some live reaction from a great guest. But also, the NCAA is looking at changing swimming rules. I don't know if you've seen this story. We've talked about it several times in the past on this show. But there's a transgender swimmer named Leah Thomas who is dominating women's swimming. And the NCAA is finally like, that's not cool. And lastly, Matt Walsh's Dr. Phil episode got taken off of the internet. Also, North Korea. There's some interesting North Korea news. It's kind of hilarious. But I want to start off with this. President Biden angers the 2A community again. For reaction here, we got a great guest, TPUSA contributor Paige Rue, also host of TPUSA's Reloaded. Paige, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I can't complain.
It's too early for Joe Biden right now.
It was too early for him yesterday at noon or whatever time that was. So he made some pretty interesting comments yesterday. I'm going to play, I think, one of the most controversial clips and then get your reaction after this. Check this out.
There's no violation of a Second Amendment right. We talk like there's no amendment that's absolute. When the amendment was passed, it didn't say anybody can own a gun and any kind of gun and any kind of weapon. You couldn't buy a cannon, and when this amendment was passed, and so no reason why you should be able to buy certain assault weapons. But that's another issue.
So, Paige. So for people who don't know you, Paige is a gun enthusiast. What's the best way to describe you?
I would say a gun expert. It is my full-time job. I was
Awesome.
raised in a indoor shooting range in Phoenix, Arizona. My dad owns the largest indoor shooting range in Arizona. I'm the senior firearms instructor there and training coordinator. So I am a full-time firearms instructor. I know it doesn't look like it, but that's what I do. And then I also host Reloaded. So completely 2A and gun is my life.
Awesome. So President Biden saying, oh, this is not an assault on his Second Amendment right. Any reaction, just off the top, what's your reaction just straight off there before we dive into the more specific things that he said?
There are so many things that I could say, but it absolutely is. And I feel like what I've been paying more attention, especially as a Turning Point contributor, I've been paying a lot of attention to anything 2A related, any bills that are coming out, and anything President Joe Biden is saying. And what I'm learning is that he and his administration is very manipulative with the terms used when it comes to firearms. And I think it works in their favor because not a lot of people know the specific terms about firearms. And so they don't know how to comprehend the terms. And so they're like, oh, but I think they're taking advantage of the American people.
Give me an example. What do you mean by not comprehending the terms?
So for one, watching his meeting yesterday, I watched the whole thing through, and he started with empathizing on the two NYPD officers killed, right? And said that the Glock, the firearm used, was stolen. And then turns it into it being a weapon of war. It is not a weapon of war. I own multiple Glocks, but it's a weapon of war because the individual had 40 rounds. Okay, so now he's talking about the capacity of the magazine, right? 40 rounds, it's fine, right? It's legal to own that. He's talking about a stolen Glock, but then turns the narrative around to his agenda and focuses on ghost guns, which is a term that not a lot of people know, and it is a term created by the left. It is not an actual term, but ghost guns. And he quotes rogue gun dealers, which I had to do a little bit of research of like, what are you describing as a rogue gun dealer? So, like, are we rogue? What does rogue mean? And so he finishes that meeting or goes through that entire meeting talking about ghost guns and rogue gun dealers, but that has nothing to do with the individual who killed those 2 NYPD officers. So it completely changes it. He uses an event like this, an event that we should empathize about, right? And we should focus on how did that criminal get that gun, right? What are we talking? Where is it being trafficked? Versus disarming the American people.
Interesting. So he also, to kind of poke fun at the president a little bit, because that's what we like to do here, he also said, well, when the Constitution was written, when the amendment was passed, you couldn't buy a cannon. We did a little digging, and I don't know if you knew this, you could, in fact, buy a cannon. It was up until, I think, like 1968, when the federal government said, all right, no more cannons, or
we
at
need
least
to restrict
regulated.
things.
Yeah, at least regulated anything under 50 caliber. Given the president's kind of missteps with history and how these laws have morphed and all that sort of stuff, do you think there is an actual attack on the Second Amendment going from the White House, or is he just confused most of the time?
Is this a he problem or the administration problem? What are you asking me? Personally, I think he doesn't know what's going on. His administration does, though, and there are a lot of, what's interesting is that the Second Amendment was written to put the power with the people. I said this yesterday on my social media platform. It was written to keep the government in check, and I think we've become really reliant on the government, and the government is taking power. And with the Second Amendment specifically, they are doing it in a very manipulative and calculated way, where we say, oh, that's not overstepping. That's not overstepping. Ghost guns isn't overstepping. And then so on and so forth until we realize, oh, shoot, we're Australia and we have no firearms.
Yeah. And so now that you brought that up, I'm just curious. Any thoughts on Australia? So people who don't know, pretty much banned every gun, I think like 2012-ish. I could be wrong on that. Do you think that has anything to do with how lockdowny and tyrannical Australia's gotten?
100%, because they removed our power as American citizens to keep control of our freedoms has to do with firearms. We have that power, right? We are able to form militias under the Second Amendment. We are able to keep our government in check. Australia allowed the government to disarm them. Now they have nothing to stand for.
Yeah, interesting.
Firearms is where it's at.
So I got one more clip to play, and I want to get your reaction to this, especially given it, being in New York. As somebody juxtaposed these two things of President Biden saying, making a gun comment as far as crime is related, and then a news report telling us the actual truth. Listen to this.
I want to help every major city follow New York's lead.
Crime is up 38% overall in New York City this year, with shootings up 32%, transit crime up 70%, and car thefts jumping a staggering 93%.
This is my Kermit the Frog sipping tea moment right here. So
but they don't get it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it
just
fires me up because they have an agenda. They're trying to cover this, and it's manipulative, but it's backfiring. You're disarming certain cities like New York and Chicago. And those are the biggest crime cities in the country. How does that line up?
You answered the question before I got to ask it. Yeah. What? No, you're good. That's great. Because that's exactly what it is. It seems like New York City, Chicago, who have some of the strictest gun laws in the country, have the biggest amount of crime and violent crime. So I don't know. What do you think needs to be done maybe in those specific cities? And what do you think that would do to the crime statistics in the future?
Do you know what they need to do is they need to arm their citizens and educate their citizens. They will never do that though. But if you look at places like Arizona and Texas and Florida who have and support the Second Amendment, our crime is very low because if someone tries to get an illegal firearm, right? If we deny people firearms every single day at our gun store.
Yeah.
And if someone has an illegal firearm or wants to commit a crime with a firearm, if they're in one of those 3 states or even other states that are very pro 2A, what is the likelihood of you encountering someone who also has a firearm, an armed citizen, right? And now you're looking at that crime and you're like, maybe I shouldn't commit that because I'm not going to be the only one with a firearm, and that person's going to be trained as well. And so I think it decreases the crime. The states like New York and Chicago aren't going to do that, though. They just want to crack down more and more and more and turn into an Australia.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that pans out. I have a feeling you're going to be right long term, but that we'll all just see. Paige, where can people find you?
On Instagram, I am some chick who shoots with underscores in between.
Awesome.
Or you can look up my name, Paige Rue. And then also on TPUSA Live, my show is Reloaded, and you can find that on YouTube.
Awesome, Paige. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So I got to get to this. So one, that's just a fascinating. This is one of those where you don't want to say, I told you so, but it's hard to not say I told you so. Speaking of I told you so's, check this out. This is, have you guys have seen the transgender swimmer at UPenn, Penn State? I'm not entirely sure which one it is. I think it's UPenn. Leah Thomas, who was a former male college athlete, now competing against the women's and is dominating. Finally, the NCAA is doing something about it, and I want to tell you all about what they're doing right after this. Inflation is through the roof. This is a topic we've been talking about for months. Inflation is through the roof. It's at a 40-year high. Last president had to deal with inflation this high was Ronald Reagan when he entered office, and he said that inflation is just like a mugger in the middle of the streets in the middle of the night. You need to protect yourself against inflation is basically what he's saying. And the best way to do that is investing in gold. How do I invest in gold, you might be asking? Well, our friends at Birch Gold can tell you everything you need to know. Investing in gold doesn't necessarily mean buying a truck full of gold and backing it up to your backyard, digging a hole and burying it there, although our friends at Birch Gold could help you do that if you wanted. But also, if you have an IRA or a 401k, you can roll those in to a gold-backed IRA, and our friends at Birch Gold can help you do that. So text JOBOB to 989898. That's Jobob to 989898. And our friends at Birch Gold will send you a no risk, no obligation, no nothing pamphlet that teaches you everything you need to know about investing in gold and, more importantly, protecting your savings. That's Jobob to 989898, Jobob to 989898. Here we go. This is probably longer time coming than we would have thought. The transgender swimmer that has been dominating over the last couple months in Pennsylvania, finally the NCAA is taking some sort of action to say, yeah, that's not cool. But before we talk about what the NCAA is actually doing, I wanted to play this clip for those of you who aren't really aware of the story. We've played this clip on the show before, and if you're listening, I'm sorry, this is more of a visual thing. I'll try my best to explain what's going on. But watch this. I had to speed this video up because this is how much Leah Thomas beat the rest of the female swimmers in this particular race. Check this out. I'll do some narration over the top of it. So you can see the mouse is covering. There's an arrow. That's her finishing. Then are these other swimmers next? No, they're getting lapped. They're getting absolutely destroyed by this transgender swimmer who was also competing as a male just a few short months ago. And as you can see, the video, finally, there's a second place finisher. 40 seconds later in this particular race, obviously I condensed that down because I didn't want you to sit through 40 seconds of swimming back and forth in a grainy video. But that's the stage we need to set here. This particular transgender swimmer is dominating. Not to mention, Leah Thomas was a male swimmer that competed in male college swimming just a couple years ago. 6'3", massive physical advantage. But finally, this is from Yahoo News. A transgender American swimmer's controversial career hung in the balance Wednesday after the collegiate body governing the sport announced new rules, including testosterone limits that could impact her ability to race competitively. Leah Thomas was dominating U.S. college swimming as a student athlete at University of Pennsylvania, where just a few years earlier had competed on the men's team. Now, amid uproar fueled by Americans who accused Thomas of an unfair advantage, U.S. Swimming unveiled guidelines that did not mention the 22-year-old specifically, but will impact Thomas's swimming future, although how remains unclear. So, finally, U.S. Swimming is saying, yeah, that's not gonna fly with us. And is doing something about the transgender swimmer that is breaking all kinds of records. Excuse me again, holy cow. U.S. Swimming said that 3-member panel of medical experts and veteran athletes was being established to implement new policies and rule on specific cases. So like I said, finally somebody is doing something about this. And look, here's the thing. This is probably the most bipartisan issue in America. People on the left, people on the right, people in the center look at that and go, there's no way that's cool. And there's a lot of people out there, myself included, are like, I don't care what you want people to call you. I couldn't care less. And I don't think the government should step in and force either which way. I think it's all ridiculous. Do whatever you want to do so long as it's not harming anybody else. But this specifically is harming pretty much any collegiate swimmer who is a female who wants to compete and have a fair shot at winning. But the main crux of the story here is that the swimming, U.S. Swimming is finally doing something about it. And I think it's going to be a testosterone thing. They're going to measure testosterone levels, and then that's going to determine whether or not somebody is going to be able to compete. Personally, I think we should just do it by chromosome. Whatever chromosomes you possess in your DNA, that's what you compete as. Not maybe if we want to get rid of the whole term men's and women's sports, fine. Call it XX and XY sports. I feel like there's a problem solved there, because then you go into like testing testosterone. Then you got people taking dangerous drugs to make sure they meet those testosterone requirements. I feel like that's just all bad. But maybe that's just me. I don't actually know. Have you seen this clip? This is the clip making the rounds that I think is hilarious. Shoot, we weren't going to talk about that first. That's Matt Walsh with some hilarious comments on Dr. Phil's show a couple weeks ago. But we will get to that. Actually, what we were going to do is talk about hackers turning off North Korean internet. When it comes to North Korean internet, this is a hilarious story. We're trying to end the week on a bright note. Right? This is just fun, and I feel like if you haven't commented or liked already, help us out. Do it. It's free for you. Doesn't cost you anything. Click the share button, because I feel like people need to end the week on a brighter note. But before we do that, I got to tell you one more time about protecting your savings against inflation. Have you heard the news? Inflation is at a 40-year high. It went up 7% last year, and it effectively is stealing your savings. Ronald Reagan said that inflation is worse than a thief in the middle of the street who will steal your money. That's what inflation is. The government wants inflation to be high because it lessens their debt burden. So they're not going to do anything about it. The U.S. government is sabotaging the U.S. dollar, and it's going to continue. How do you protect yourself? Gold. Gold, Sonny! No, but seriously, gold is the best way to do it. And the best way to invest in gold is with our friends at Birch Gold. If you text JOBOB to 989898, that's Jobob to 989898, our friends at Birch Gold will send you a no risk, no obligation, no nothing pamphlet that tells you everything you need to know about investing in gold. You have 401k, you have an IRA, you can roll those into a gold-backed IRA and protect your savings. Birch Gold is a A+ Better Business Bureau rating and has helped thousands of people protect their savings. So do it today. Text JOBOB to 989898. That's Jobob to 989898. And our friends at Birch Gold will help you protect your savings. This is my favorite time of the week. We talk about serious subjects all the time and all day, every day. This is when we get to bring in our friend Alex Spencer and talk about things that are less serious. Alex Spencer is the host of the brand new podcast, Alex Spencer vs. the News, and she joins us today. Alex, how you doing?
I am well, Jobob. How are you?
I can't complain, but you know who can complain is people in North Korea, because some hacker has just shut off North Korean internet and has been causing problems for the last few weeks. Have you heard about this story? Any comments and reactions, or anything fun to say to Kim Jong-un, who's having to deal with not being able to download I was going to make a really unfortunate joke there. His favorite Netflix movie, for instance.
Jobob, I think the lesson that we can all learn from a story like this is if you're going to go on a revenge tirade, do it against the commies. This is the perfect outlet to take any pent-up aggression you may have and, do something worthwhile with it. So, it doesn't even have to be if you are a victim of a cyber attack like this person was. If you are mad at a significant other, maybe you had a fight, dinner didn't go the way that you planned, maybe not a nice meeting with the in-laws, whatever it may be. I think we can all have some unity in our personal lives if we just put that energy towards attacking the communists. So, of course, this was a victim of a cyber attack who said that the U.S. just didn't really do anything about it. And so he took matters into his own hand, which I don't know about you, but I find it super, super surprising that the U.S. government just didn't handle something correctly and that, a citizen had to take matters into his own hands. I mean, the government is just so competent, especially under this current leadership, that I'm honestly just shocked, Jobob.
I just want to make it clear to everybody, when you say attack the commies, we're talking about cyber warfare in North Korea. If you go to a communist rally somewhere, don't hit people in the streets. Violence is not the answer, but I do like your point. If you have anger and you are a hacker, go ahead and screw with Iran's networking system or North Korea's networking system. I think that would be very funny. I would appreciate you doing that. Alex, so you brought up, you texted me earlier and said, well, we got to talk about this. Matt Walsh, hilarious dude. His episode from Dr. Phil got taken down from Hulu, I believe. I want to play this clip and get your reaction on the other side of how people are bending the knee to the woke mob. Listen to this.
Well, this is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology, is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. It's like, what is a woman?
Well,
can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't. Because it's not for me to say. Womanhood looks different for everybody.
What do you define a woman as?
An adult human female. I have answered the question. You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not myself.
You used the word. So what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right. So here's the thing. So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people
that describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own.
So that's like my favorite clip, but you were mentioning what happened to that clip, Alex.
Well, the entire episode is now not on Hulu. So they kind of just did this. I don't know if they thought nobody would notice, but of course, after seeing a clip like that, you're going to want to watch the full episode of that content. So people went to Hulu, which hosts all of the episodes of the Dr. Phil show. I think this is the only one that they don't have up. And they were saying to Matt Walsh on Twitter and bringing it to his attention that, this episode's now not available. They've taken it down. I don't believe that they have said anything about why they've taken it down. But of course, we have enough cultural context to know it's because Matt Walsh completely just decimated these activists with his points, and they don't want that out there. And my question about stuff like this is because they'll take this stuff off the internet, they'll take it off of streaming services because they consider it harassment for these points of view to be out there. Basically, if you say that a biological woman is the only way to be a woman, then that is harassment. So they'll strike your content. I mean, even just talking about this in today's day and age puts us at a danger for having this show taken down, which is absolutely crazy. But why am I supposed to believe these people when they tell me that a proven science, biology, is a social construct that we should just disregard? Why should I trust those people when they can't even trust themselves to not watch content that they have deemed triggering to them? Why does everybody else have to not have access to this content because you can't have your emotions in check?
There you go. There's also that the argument of, hey, if you don't like it, you don't need to watch it. I don't know about you, but I don't know of any situation where people are being forced to watch Dr. Phil on Hulu.
Luckily, I never have. So,
which brings us to this. I'm going to show you. Okay, hold on. Trigger warning, or what's the term? Is it trigger warning? Yeah. Sure.
That's
this is a real thing. This is Apple's emojis have been updated or are being updated, and you're going to see on your screen in just a second to include a pregnant man. Any thoughts out? I'm at a loss for words here.
They came out with this a while ago, and everyone just kind of called attention to this when they were basically doing their pitch meeting of these different concepts. And everyone was saying how ridiculous this was back then. And so then they doubled down, and actually in the new iOS launch, these are included. So you'll have pregnant man emojis. Now, I don't know who is going to be using these emojis because pregnant men don't exist. When you
I will use them. That is, I will only identify as that. So there's that.
Yeah, my pronouns are pregnant man. But it's absolute ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the fact that this is where we're told that we're in this time that people are at, we're just kind of at the pinnacle of the social justice movement. We're told that people are so oppressed in America. We're told that people aren't doing enough about it. If you're actually in an oppressed society, if you're in an oppressed group of people, you are not worried about making emojis of pregnant men. So this just shows that this is not really about actually taking action that's going to help anybody, but more about just proving a point. Because this is just going to be used by people who, have acquired a beer belly. It's going to be used after too many meals at Chipotle. Men are not going to take this seriously. And so I don't know why they thought this was good for the trans movement. Because there just aren't pregnant men. You don't have to get pregnant to be a woman, but if you get pregnant, you're definitely not a man.
Okay, check this out. What you just said, a litany of comments coming through the comment section. That's quite a beer belly. Furnace says, that's a whole lot of drinking beer. Frank says, LOL, beer belly emoji. So they're right on track with you. Wait, no, that's a beer gut, says Burn. There are literally, I'm looking at like 15 different comments. Pregnant woman, beer drinking man, says Angela. So you hit the nail on the head there, Alex. That's some good foresight on your part, unless you're just trolling through the comments while you're talking and trying to act as if you know the future.
I'm just scrolling through, but I mean that's where any reasonable person's head would be at with this. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's not serious at all. It really makes me question how serious they take themselves. Like, what executives over at Apple are like, this seems like the thing that we should do now. It's just silly. And
this is a good idea.
Yeah, no one's gonna use that.
Well, hey, Alex, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. Any last thoughts on any of these stories before we head into the weekend? Maybe some weekend advice? I don't know. I'm putting you on the spot here.
My weekend advice is to just do what you can to stay sane in this insane world. And if you need a way to do that, maybe take some advice from the man in our first story and just, try to fight communism with all that you can. If the government's not helping you out, take matters into your own hand. If they let you, it's crazy times that we're living in. But Stay sane, everybody. Thank you very much for having me on, Jobob. Have a great weekend.
Appreciate it. See you next week. That's going to do it for us this week on Daily Caller Live. Hey, appreciate all you sticking around. I know there's a bunch of, oh no, what am I doing here? There we go. Fumbling up. It's Friday. I don't know what's going on anymore. But appreciate all you sticking around. Appreciate you in the comment sections. I love reading these things. They're super fun pretty much all of the time. If you haven't already, would love a follow on any of the social media platforms. My Instagram following blew up this last week. There's 5,000 new people on there, and it's making it, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I feel weird that people listen to what I say. So, but anyways, I appreciate all of you that are hopped on those social media platforms. If you haven't already, JOBOB on Instagram, Getter, Twitter. I gotta change this Chiron to reflect all of the social media accounts, but you can find me on anywhere you go to social media. We can interact there. I do pay attention. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I probably get back to most of your messages, especially if they're hilarious stories. So follow me there. Can keep the conversation going. Other than that, have a great weekend. We will see you Monday. God bless America.